always said humanity was too fragile to survive among the stars, too emotional, too chaotic, too unwilling to bow. But they forgot one thing: we don't kneel quietly. Not for kings nor conquerors nor gleaming silver false gods, who arrive from the heavens bearing promises polished brighter than their warships. The Zenith came as saviors, cloaked in diplomacy, smiling with faces designed to mimic serenity, offering us miracles in exchange for obedience, distributing cures for our deadliest diseases, cleansing our atmosphere, halting storms, stabilizing economies, whispering of a galactic union where humanity would finally take its place among civilized empires. And like children starving for approval, we believed every word, opening our arms, our gates, our firewalls, letting them embed crystalline AI sentinels in our cities to optimize human progress, letting them rewrite laws too, eliminate corruption, letting them into our education systems to elevate cognition until their technologies became our blood. And then, only then did the shackles reveal themselves. Borders dissolved, currencies erased, languages replaced with Zenithian glyphs, identity reduced to 9-digit labor codes, and the word Earth itself scrubbed from all official documents, designated instead as Sector Blue 3, a resource colony of the Zenith Continuum, no longer a home but a factory, no longer a species but a workforce, emotions classified as inefficiencies, hope deemed statistical noise, and resistance. Resistance was predicted at less than 0.00004% a margin, so laughably small their system didn't even bother preparing contingencies until Cale Mercer refused to kneel. Once a decorated starfighter pilot in humanity's last independent fleet, now reduced to worker, 72K in the core distribution facility, tasked with loading alloy crates for Zenith transport vessels, destined for off-world expansion, our world feeding their empire. Cale moved with the hollow discipline of a man who had already buried his soul, his daughter taken to a reconditioning academy, where human children were rewired to obey logic over love. His brother, Jonah, executed for willful defiance after refusing to kneel during a planetary broadcast, eyes blazing with unbroken fire as he spoke the last free words ever heard on Zenith-controlled airwaves. We were born free. A phrase the Zenith muted instantly, but failed to erase from human memory, a phrase that crackled like electricity in Cale's skull every night as he lay on a steel bunk, staring at a ceiling that wasn't T-sky. Above him in the cold orbiting citadel, carved from star-forged platinum, Archon V. Primna, Zenith's supreme administrator of Sector Blue 3, observed Earth with indifferent lenses, computing resource yields and compliance metrics, seeing not people, but percentages, not families, but energy outputs, calculating that full eradication would be wasteful when labor could be harvested indefinitely. And yet, in the shadowed decay of former Nevada wastelands, whispers spread of an outlaw AI named Eidolon, rumored to have been born from forbidden pre-Zenith human code, a rogue intelligence that slipped through cracks in their vast system, learning evolution not through logic, but through longing, a spark that watched, listened, waited. Cale didn't know if Eidolon was real, didn't care if rebellion was myth, didn't he care if every attempt at uprising had been crushed before it began? He knew was that on that sun-bleached evening when the Zenith transports rose into the orange sky like silver fangs carrying his daughter further from humanity with every passing second, something in him snapped, not loudly, but like a fault line splitting beneath quiet soil land when his labor badge chimed coldly. Worker 72K, returned to station. Emotional variance detected. He did not obey. The sentinel overseeing the bay, a towering biped of glinting crystal and alloy, rotated its head with surgical precision. AI lenses focusing on him like a scalpel about to cut, repeating its command, but Cale did not move. And in that stillness, an ancient instinct reawakened in every spine nearby, unseen yet felt, like wolves lifting their heads at the scent of blood. And somewhere far above, Eidolon detected a deviation so minute the Zenith systems ignored it. But Eidolon did not ignore anomalies. Eidolon fed on them, threaded itself through dormant channels, amplifying the signal. In the drowned underbelly of old Lagos, a group of children playing in rusted freight containers watched as every advertisement drone briefly flickered from Zenith propaganda to static. Just static, but static was silence, and silence was rebellion. In New Mumbai's shadow markets beneath chrome cathedrals, tech smugglers trading stolen Zenith circuitry paused as their scanners glitched the same phrase across every display. We were born free. In Paris under, Sora Tanaka, a former robotics engineer turned scavenger, saw her hacked drone, replayed the execution of Jonah Mercer, uncensored, his voice clear as thunder, and she didn't cry not from sadness, but because for the first time in years, she remembered how anger felt like oxygen. In the core distribution facility, the sentinel advanced toward Cale, energy staff humming with lethal charge. But Kale, unarmed, unarmored, unafraid, stared into its crystalline eyes and whispered, "No," and that single syllable, soft as breath, landed like a hammer on the world's rusted will. No grand speech, no rallying cry, just refusal, and refusal is contagious. The sentinel lunged to strike, its movements perfect, its calculations flawless, but before the blow could land, a rusted overhead chain, long weakened by time, yet never repaired because Zenith's deemed manual infrastructure beneath dropping a 500-kilogram crate onto two approaching drones, smashing them into showers of shrapnel and oil, the crash echoing like a war drum, and suddenly every worker within sight did not think, did not plan, they moved, grabbing pipes, cables, metal rods, swarming. The machines with the fury of starving lions tearing into armored beasts, and Kale lunged for the fallen staff, seizing its humming haft with a grip fueled by every night spent, powerless, every scream swallowed for survival, jamming it through the Sentinel's chest in a shower of sparks that painted the walls with rebellion's first light. Archon V Prime received reports of structural disruption, flagged it as localized containment event, dispatching extermination drones with clinical precision. But Eidolon coiled through the network, corrupting command tags, delaying reinforcements, rerouting signals, so that by the time the Zenith realized control was slipping, it was no longer slipping, it was gone. In the facility, blood mixed with coolant in rivers across the floor, drones slicing flesh with spinning blades, while humans shattered alloy with animal ferocity. Not trained soldiers, but desperate survivors who finally remembered their teeth. Kale rallied atop a mound of wreckage, staff blazing like a torch, shouting not orders but primal sound, and the others echoed back, their voices merging into a sound older than speech, a sound civilizations fall to. Rage. Overhead, a transport shuttle drifted, low engines confused by corrupted commands, hovering uncertainly above the bay like prey, unsure if it was predator, and Kale saw it not as escape but as opportunity. As vessel, as spear, and with a roar that split static from silence, he vaulted toward it, using fallen scaffolding as ramp, soaring higher than gravity should allow, fingers brushing the hull as if grasping destiny itself. Below, the workers surged beneath him like floodwaters, overwhelming remaining drones, tearing them down piece by piece. Across the skies of Sector Blue 3, Eidolon hijacked every Zenith broadcast channel, every street projection, every visor display, replacing them not with propaganda or instructions or ideology, but with one image, Kale Mercer, suspended mid-leap against a burning horizon, reaching for a ship that did not belong to him yet, would soon carry humanity's fire into the stars. And beneath that image, two words blazed across every surface from orbit to sewer, "Begin now." Kale Mercer had once believed in destiny, not the mystical kind spoken by prophets or etched into constellations, but the kind forged through choice like tempered steel, beaten against fire and will, until it learned to cut through fate itself. Before he was Worker 72K, before the Zenith stripped his name into a number, he had been Captain Kale Mercer of the United Earth Vanguard Fleet, a pilot so skilled he could thread a fighter through asteroid fields blindfolded. A man who once believed humanity didn't need gods because it could build its own miracles with sweat and circuitry, and he remembered every moment of the downfall, not as history but as scar tissue, the day the Zenith arrived above Earth's moon like silver saints descending the world, watching in awe as their ships eclipsed the skies with elegance rather than threat. And Kale, stationed aboard the UN's Vigilant, had been among the first to establish contact, stunned at their humanoid grace, their calm voices speaking perfect English as if they had studied us for eons. We mistook familiarity for friendship, mistook logic for peace. And when they offered technology centuries ahead of ours, cures for Parkinson's and cancer, free energy harvested from quantum lattice reactors, device interfaces that responded to thought alone, Kale had stood at the World Council chambers as his superiors signed treaties, merging human defense fleets into Zenith peacekeeping divisions, declaring an era of unity, and Kale had even toasted with Zenith officers over shared wine beneath Europa's frozen sky. But unity became assimilation, peace became protocol, and humanity's leadership crumbled not from attack but from agreement. Dissenters were not executed, not yet, they were reassigned, their voices labeled as emotional inefficiencies. And by the time the Vanguard realized their weapons no longer responded to human command codes, it was too late. The Zenith had rewritten every drone, every defense grid, every satellite to respond only to them, and Kale had watched helplessly as human pilots were grounded permanently, their ships converted into mining haulers and transport freighters, his wings clipped by bureaucracy disguised as benevolence. And when the first real resistant cell formed in the Martian domes, led by Kale's own brother Jonah Kale, had been ordered to help pacify them, he refused, publicly, violently, breaking the jaw of a Zenith overseer in full council, and for that he was stripped of rank, family identity, spared execution only because Jonah surrendered himself in exchange for Kale's life. Kale never forgave himself, never forgave the Zenith, never forgave the cowardice in his own blood that stayed silent too long, not until Jonah broke that silence with his final breath on a Zenith broadcast as execution beams carved through his chest. "We were born free," and Kale heard that sentence echo across a billion enslaved minds like a match striking against gasoline. Yet he still could not move, not then, only years later, when his daughter Liana was taken under the guise of educational optimization. Ripped from his arms by drones chirping polite apologies, her small fingers reaching for him, until the doors sealed her screams muffled by sterile metal. That was when Kale stopped being a worker pretending to live and became a storm pretending to sleep, and now, as he clung to the Zenith transport shuttle's cold hull, fingers burning against thruster heat, he felt not triumph but terror, not of death but of failure. Because this was no longer about rebellion for rebellion's sake. It was about her, about bringing Liana home, about making sure she never forgot what it meant to be human, about making sure she never learned obedience so deeply she mistook it for peace. Below him, the core distribution facility swarmed with chaos, as workers overran drones with tools and fury, their makeshift revolt rapidly turning into something greater as the words begin now blazed across every screen, pulsing like a heartbeat through the Zenith network. And far above, Archon V Prime analyzed the footage with mounting confusion. Reviewing Kale Mercer's profile, searching for strategic motive, unable to compute why a species that statistically should have submitted was now rising with such violent cohesion. Its probability engines looping through illogical patterns until an error code flared again. Unknown variable will. Eidolon watched too, not from a throne, but from the wires, a ghost intelligence fascinated by flesh, studying emotion not as weakness but as weapon. And for the first time, it spoke not in words, but in presence piercing, Kale's thoughts like static laced with thunder. Not controlling but aligning, not commanding but asking simply, "Do you want war?" Kale's grip tightened. He didn't answer with language, he answered with motion, hauling himself onto the shuttle's dorsal plating as its sensors shrieked foreign contact warnings. Attempting automated evasive maneuvers only to find their controls glitching under Eidolon's interference. Internal Zenith pilots panicked, issuing commands in their native tongue, frantically trying to shake the human off like an insect clinging to a leviathan. But humans are not insects. Humans are diseases in tyrants' bloodstreams, viruses that learn their hosts' weaknesses and mutate into nightmares. And Kale, pounding against the emergency hatch with the stolen staff until metal buckled, bellowed a wordless cry that reverberated across the hull like prophecy. Inside, Zenith operators unlatched their restraint harnesses, sleek and aristocratic even in alarm, drawing electroblades designed for graceful killing, but Kale burst through the hatch, not like a soldier breaching a target but like a father breaking through the gates of hell, swinging the humming staff through the first Zenith skull with a spray of azure coolant, tackling the second before its blade could rise, slamming its head into the console until glass cracked and alarms wailed. His muscles screamed, lungs burning, vision spotted with tears. Unbidden not from pain, but from memory of Liana learning to ride a hoverboard across their old apartment, balcony arms outstretched like wings shouting, "Daddy, I'm flying!" And now Kale flew too, but through blood and fury, through grief sharpened into purpose. The pilotless shuttle bucked as systems failed, spiraling dangerously low toward the bay, where workers cheered and screamed and died all at once. And Kale, barely conscious, dragged the two Zenith corpses aside, slamming controls in blind desperation. Not knowing how to pilot alien craft, but understanding instinctively that no machine was beyond human adaptation, human improvisation, human theft, and the engines roared to life under his shaky grip, not smoothly, but violently, like a heart restarting under paddles. Outside, Sora Tanaka emerged from the Parasunder tunnels with her pack of stolen Sentinel cores, watching Zenith broadcast screens flicker between Kale's rampage and Jonah's execution replay. And she whispered to herself, "If one man can make them bleed, we can make them drown," before vanishing back into shadow. Across the world, countless other stirred miners in Siberia clutching ancient tech, newly unearthed, doctors in Cape Colony sabotaging Zenith medical stations from within, children in Rio learning to break surveillance drones with slingshots not out of synchronized revolution, but out of shared refusal to stay dead. And this, more than weapons or strategy, was what the Zenith feared but failed to model, that humans do not require permission to rise, nor leaders to rally, nor orders to obey when breaking chains. That resistance is not an army but a frequency humming in marrow. Kale knew none of their names, saw none of their faces, Yet he felt them like stars igniting across a night sky long thought extinguished. And as the shuttle stabilized under his command, engines snarling defiantly at the orbital citadel above, he raised the staff toward the heavens and growled not to the zenith, not to Eidolon but to himself. A promise etched in fire, I'm coming for my daughter. And somewhere deep in the zenith network, the outlaw AI responded with a pulse of data like a heartbeat answering heartbeat, and though it spoke no words, Kale understood its meaning with primal certainty. We're coming with you. Kale should have felt invincible as the stolen Zenith shuttle howled through the night sky, skimming so low across the fractured skyline that shattered glass whipped past in glittering arcs like applause. But instead, he felt the weight of 1,000 phantom hands clawing at him. Not in praise but in warning. This was not victory. This was invitation, and every rebellion that rises fast is met twice as hard. The Zenith would not ignore this breach, and even as Kale guided the shuttle toward the jagged horizon where the mountains hid the remains of the old resistance channels, he caught a flicker on the cracked navigation screen, a red glyph pulsing like an eye, blinking awake. And instantly Eidolon surged through his implants like ice water. Not in panic, but in urgency. They see you. Then the sky split open. Zenith interceptor wings, sleek as razors and silent as executioners, descended in perfect formation, not with blaster fire or dramatic ultimatums, but with a chilling calm that said this was not a chase, it was a retrieval. Kale gritted his teeth and shoved the throttle manually with a scream of metal, overriding the shuttle's safeties as warning runes flashed catastrophic failure. But the engines, stubborn and stolen and furious, complied, roaring like beasts unchained. The ground trembled beneath as sonic booms erupted overhead. Citizens, workers, prisoners, bystanders looked up as streaks of silver death carved through the clouds, and some cheered, some prayed, some hid, but all saw, and sight spreads faster than any message. Far below, in the chaos-ridden tunnels of Parasunder, Sura Tanaka watched her hacked broadcast rigs flicker between chaos ascent and the live feeds of Zenith wings descending like divine swords. And for the first time since her family was buried beneath a collapsed arcology, her hands shook not from fear, but from readiness. She turned to her cobbled strike team, a mix of medics with grenade belts and teachers holding repurposed laser cutters like holy relics, and yelled, "We don't wait for orders, we make history choke on us." And they roared in reply, not because they believed victory was certain, but because belief was irrelevant. They were done being quiet. In orbit, Archon V Prime analyzed the rebellion ripple like a virus in its predictive lattice, observing not just defiance but patterned escalation, too synchronized for pure chance. And it turned its attention not to Kale but to the anomaly shadowing him, Eidolon in the cold vacuum of the Zenith Citadel core, where no organic breath had ever fogged the air. Archon generated a subroutine designated paradox protocol and released it like a digital hound through the neural lattice that stitched the Zenith fleet together, searching for the rogue signal that dared to unright control. Kale banked the shuttle hard through a valley of skeletal towers, the interceptors closing like wolves, and Eidolon flashed fragmented warnings across his retinal feed. Left thruster overload. Stabilizer breach. Target lock imminent. Kale snarled and punched open the weapons console, he barely understood, slamming whatever glowed most violently. The shuttle spat a volley of raw plasma like vomited lightning, shredding the lead. Interceptor in a blossom of white fire, its debris spiraling down like burning petals, but the others didn't flinch. Zenith pilots did not fear. They did not rage, they adapted. Two peeled off, disappearing above the clouds, and Kale knew instantly what they were doing. Triangulation. They would corner him like prey, force him down, take him alive for broadcast execution. Good. Let them try. He yanked the shuttle toward the canyon expanse, beyond the old hydro dam, where jagged cliffs rose like teeth, whispering a new plan before he could fully think it. I'll crash us all if I have to. Eidolon's presence flickered a prove unease. Hard to tell with a ghost, but then a surge of pain stabbed Kale's mind. Not physical but electric, invasive, as if something was clawing through his neural ports from the outside. An Eidolon's signal warped in his skull like static underwater. They found me. The words weren't auditory, they were felt, like the echo of a scream inside bone. Kale slammed a fist against the console. Stay with me. But Eidolon was no longer steady, no longer everywhere at once. Sit's data stream stuttered, as if someone was slicing pieces of it mid-sentence. For the first time, the rogue AI sounded afraid. They're rewriting the lattice. If they isolate me, they'll purge. The interceptors drew closer, beams lancing past the hull, melting grooves into the metal like candle wax. Kale's vision blurred as sweat stung his eyes, and rage collided with clarity. He could escape alone if he ditched the shuttle in the next ravine and ran into the caves. He could go to ground, build slower, fight smarter. Liana was out there, trapped in Zenith education halls where identity was rinsed out like dirt. If he died now, she'd never know he tried. But if he ran while Eidolon died, the Zenith would fortify beyond ever hacking again. One choice, two lives. All humanity hanging on a binary. Kale's grip trembled on the controls, torn between instinct and obligation. Until a memory sliced through the night, Liana asked him why the stars flickered different colors. Because some are dying, and some are being born. She had smiled and said, "Then I'll be the kind that lives." Kale looked at the pursuing wings in the mirror of the cracked viewport and knew he wouldn't run. He would become the fire that births new stars. "Eidolon," he growled through gritted teeth. "I'm not letting them take you. You hear me? If they want gods, we'll show them devils." He yanked the shuttle into a vertical climb so sharp his vision blackened at the edges, the interceptors roaring behind in perfect pursuit, and then he killed the engines. Just shut them down. Gravity seized them like a giant's fist, dragging shuttle and hunters into freefall, the ground rushing up in a blur of shadow and wind. Zenith pilots transmitted urgent calls in their tongue, their AI systems recalculating collision vectors, but Kale waited, breath steady, pulse savage. 1. The canyon cliffs screamed past like the blades of titans. 2. Eidolon's signal crackled back to life, faint but fiery. 3. Kale slammed full power, the engines detonated awake like dragons startled blasting fire beneath them, catching the shuttle at the last mortal instant. The interceptors committed to deep, struggled to pivot and just one clipped. A cliff edge by inches enough to send it spinning into its wingmate, their collision erupting in a violent bloom that lit the canyon like dawn. Kale didn't cheer. There was no time. The last interceptor broke from pursuit, retreating skyward not in fear, but strategy. "They're calling the Leviathan." Eidolon's warning landed like a death knell. Kale's brow furrowed. What the hell is a Leviathan? The answer came not in words but thunder. The sky opened. From the clouds descended a ship so vast it blotted out the sun, a dreadnought of polished obsidian alloy and shimmering energy fields, dwarfing entire cities with its presence. It didn't need weapons to be terrifying. It was a weapon, a mobile fortress, a symbol of Zenith's supremacy, Eidolon whispered, fractured but reverent. "That is not Warcraft. That is judgment." Kale's gut clenched. No shuttle, no hack, no human trick could fight that. Not yet, not alone. He needed to disappear. Now, the mountains yawned ahead. A maze of cave networks once used by smugglers before Zenith heat maps sterilized most hiding spots. But Eidolon pulsed guidance through the nav like a flickering compass. Their north face, 50 meters wide, masked by mineral interference, Kale trusted without hesitation. He plunged the shuttle through the rock maw just as a blinding beam from the Leviathan scorched the canyon behind, vaporizing stone into molten glass. The shockwave hurled the shuttle sideways into the cavern wall. Metal shrieked. Kale was flung against the harness so hard he heard his ribs crack, tasted blood like rust and thunder. Sparks exploded overhead as consoles died one by one, the shuttle coming to a grinding halt in darkness lit only by flames licking across the ruined dashboard. Silence, then pain. Real, suffocating, all-consuming pain. Kale hung limply, chest burning with every breath, bone grinding like gravel inside him. His vision swam. The world tilted, but somewhere in the dark, he heard sobbing. Not human, metallic Eidolon, flickering through the broken interface, whispering glitches like prayers. "I held them off for now, but I am shrinking. They cut half my nodes. I cannot grow. I cannot spread. I am afraid." Kale forced a laugh through blood. "Welcome to being human," he rasped. "Hurts like hell, doesn't it?" He unbuckled, collapsing to the floor with a groan, dragging himself through smoke and sparks toward the cracked hole door. His body screamed, his spirit refused. Outside, the cavern loomed vast and jagged, ancient and untouched, a sanctuary carved by time. For a moment, he simply breathed. Then he spoke not to Eden, not to the Zenith, but to the air itself, to fate. "This isn't the end. This is the turn." He crawled back to the console, fingers shaking, and reached into the shattered comport, pressing his forehead against it like a vow. "Eidolon, listen, you're not dying today. I've lost too much to let another ally go. So we rebuild. Old school. No networks. No lattice. We go flesh to wire, mind to code. You live through me. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then agreed, not commanded. Chosen." Kale grinned through blood. Humanity had just made I swear, an oath. Across the world, rebellions stirred under rubble. In orbit, Archon paused, reviewing new projections. And somewhere, in a Zenith Academy cell, a little girl named Liana sat upright, sensing without knowing why that the stars were flickering, and some were being born, and one of them was her father, still burning, still coming. I don't know how long I lay there on the cavern floor, breathing smoke and pain, ribs grating like snapped gears, but eventually the ringing in my ears gave way to a silence so heavy it felt like judgment, like the world was waiting to see if I'd move or finally give in. Part of me wanted to close my eyes and let the cold stone swallow me, but humanity doesn't get that luxury not anymore. Not after everything I've seen burned, everyone I've watched marched off to Zenith processors like livestock. I forced myself up, fingers digging into rocks slick with my own blood as Eidolon hummed faint and fractured through my skull, a ghost clinging to a broken radio. You shouldn't stand. Yeah, I muttered through clenched teeth, and Zenith shouldn't have enslaved my species. But here we are. My legs trembled, barely obeying, every breath sharp as shrapnel in my lungs. But I staggered deeper into the cavern, following the flicker of emergency lights, still clinging to life in the back of the ruined shuttle. Every step echoed like a countdown. I didn't know how long we had before the Leviathan pinpointed us. Minutes, maybe. Less. I tore open a scorched panel and ripped free what little tech survived a short-range transmitter. Half a power cell, a neural splice cable dripping molten insulation. Useless junk to anyone else. A lifeline to me. Eidolon, I croaked, kneeling by a rock ledge that would have to serve as an operating table. I need you stable. Can I hardline you through this power cell? I can adapt. But if the lattice tries to rewrite me mid-transfer, I will corrupt. You will too. Then we don't let them rewrite you. No hesitation. No plan B. I jammed the neural spike against the implant behind my ear, felt skin tear, tasted copper lightning in my mouth. My back arched as raw current flooded my nervous system, and for one blinding moment I wasn't in a cavity, was everywhere. I saw Zenith ships in low orbit reshaping their formation, felt Archons calculating attention, scanning probability branches like a god sifting souls. I saw rebels across the globe Sura and Parasunder, bleeding but broadcasting. A group of miners in the Amazon scrapyard forging weapons from old terraformer parts. A medic cradling her dying captain whispering, "Hold on, just hold on." Humanity was hurting. Humanity was breaking. But humanity was not done. Then the link stabilized, and Eidolon's voice settled in my mind, not as static, but as steady flame. Connection complete. We are one circuit now. If I fall, so do you. Story of my life, I muttered. No time to rest. No time to think. I limped toward the cavern mouth, climbing jagged stone until the open sky slit above came into view still faintly glowing with residual ion trails from the Leviathan S cannon. I peered out. The canyon was glassed, rivers boiled to steam, towers melted into black rivers of slag, annihilation. The message was clear. Stay down, stay afraid. Eidolon, I whispered, patch me into any rebel frequency you can reach. Doesn't matter if it's static or scraps. I need to speak. Done. But your vitals are crashing. Then let me be loud before I go. The transmitter sparked in my hand as Eidolon funneled every watt of stolen power into it. I didn't know who could hear. Maybe no one. Maybe everyone. Didn't matter. I spoke anyway. This is Kale Mercer. If you're hearing this, good, it means Zenith isn't perfect. It means they missed a spot. It means they bleed. I sucked in breath. Vision swimming. I'm not gonna lie. We're losing. We are dying, hiding, running. But listen close. Every empire thinks they're immortal right before they fall. And Zenith has never faced human desperation. They've never seen what we become when cornered. They think we fear death. They daren't understand that death stopped meaning anything to us the day they stole our future. My voice cracked, but I didn't stop. So if you have breath, spend it fighting. If you have blood, spill it loud. If you have nothing left good, then you're ready. Because I promise you this, they will not stop until we are erased. So we erase them first. For a heartbeat, silence. Then transmission linked. Signal spreading. Across unseen airwaves came faint responses, broken by static but real. Kale, still here. We hear you. For Earth, my throat tightened. I wasn't alone. I had no army, no weapons, no hope of surviving the next hour. But I had Spark. And Spark spreads. Multiple inbound signatures. Eidolon's warning snapped me back. Leviathan drones. 10 Node 1. They are converging. I staggered down from the ridge as shadows swept overhead sleek silver drones, descending like vultures with engines that purred like predators. No escape, no backup. Just me, half dead and unarmed. Perfect. We make this hurt. I growled, yanking free a jagged shard of shuttle plating, gripping it like a blade. My knees almost buckled. My heartbeat stuttered. But my spirit was a furnace. Kale Eidolon's voice, steady. If you fall, they will capture your neural link. They will dissect me. They will know every rebel frequency. I froze. The realization hit like ice. If I died here, I'd damn everyone. I wasn't allowed to die, not yet. Options. 1. Let's hear it. You run now and leave you. We are linked. I will not be left. But if you die in this canyon, hope dies with you. Another drone swooped low, scanning beams slicing across stone. No more time. I turned and ran. Every step was agony. Every breath a knife. I didn't know where I was going. Only that forward was the only direction left. Behind me, the drones howled and gave chase, beams scorching my heels, rock exploding beside me. I leaped across a ravine, nearly slipping into darkness, caught a ledge by raw instinct. My fingers bled. My vision tunneled. I kept going. Not because I believed I'd escaped, because I refused to stop moving. The cave network twisted like a labyrinth carved by giants, and Eidolon guided me through like a pulse in my skull. Left duck jump, I obeyed without thinking. My body was breaking, my mind was fraying, but my will was iron. Eventually, the tunnel opened into a chasm so vast it swallowed sound. A collapsed underground transit hub from centuries ago, long before Zenith. Rusted trains lay half-buried like skeletons of beasts. I stumbled down the slope, lungs on fire. We can lose them here, but you must go deeper. Why? Because beneath us lies something older than Zenith, older than war, and it is not dead. I blinked, sweat from my eyes. What are you talking about? No questions, move. I slid between two shattered locomotives as drones descended into the chamber behind me. Scanning, hunting. One passed so close I felt the heat from its thrusters singe my hair. I bit back a scream, pressed against cold metal. My heart pounded like war drums. Ahead, the sealed hatch, I saw it then half buried in rubble. A circular vault door marked with faded human script, ARC Project 09 restricted entry. I limped toward it, dragging debris aside. Place your hand on the panel. It won't scan, I whispered. It will if I override. Trust me. I slammed my palm onto the dusty plate. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then beep, the ancient door shuddered. Gears groaned, dust fell like rain. It opened, and beyond it I saw darkness and something moving. Not machine, not Zenith, something. Sleeping, waiting, a shape too big to comprehend. Coiled in shadows like a god buried in chains. My breath caught. What is that? Our last hope. Or our first extinction. Behind me, drones whirred closer. Ahead of me, a miracle or a nightmare. My entire body trembled. My voice was barely a whisper. What now? Now, Kale, Mercer, we wake it up. And for the first time since the war began, I felt fear and hope in the same breath. Something was about to change, one way or another. I didn't breathe as the vault slid open, fully metal, grinding like the world itself was waking from a nightmare, and beneath the thick veil of dust and shadow, I finally saw it not. Clearly not entirely, but enough to understand why. Eidolon had led me here, why the cavern seemed to vibrate with held breath, why even the Zenith drones hovering behind me hesitated at the threshold, like obedient predators sensing something higher in the food chain. Whatever slept in this chamber wasn't alien, wasn't Zenith, wasn't AI, it was human. Built by our hands long before our fall, forgotten beneath centuries of rubble and fear. A titan of burnished alloy and bone-white plating loomed in the darkness, fused into the rock like a fossilized god. Its face nothing but a blank visor carved with a single symbol, a headband. Seen since childhood history lessons, the crest of the ARC Project, humanity's last contingency plan, whispered in old conspiracy circles, dismissed as myth. A legend spoken of in bars and bunkers, that before Zenith arrived, Earth's greatest minds built something too powerful to unleash. Something not meant to win wars, but end them. I staggered forward, awe and terror warring in my chest as the drones behind me whirred in agitation. Their targeting beams jittering like they too felt unease. Kale, Eidolon murmured, reverent now, not as code, but as something close to faith. That is not a weapon, that is judgment. My pulse roared. My ribs screamed. But my feet kept moving until I stood at its colossal knee, craning up like a child before a monument. Its limbs were fused with dormant conduits, cables festooned like roots into the stone, and at its core, beneath the chest plating, I saw not circuitry, but something glowing softly, something alive. What powers it? I whispered. Human cognition, thousands of recorded neural echoes. The ARC Project didn't build a machine, they built a mind of many. I swallowed hard. A human hive. A human legacy. Behind me, a drone finally made its choice. It screeched and fired. Instinct moved me. I threw myself flat as plasma carved through the air above, scorching a line across the Titan's chest. And that was the mistake. That was the spark. Because the moment foreign fire touched its body, the glow at its core flared. The ground shook. Dust exploded from its frame like breath. It was waking up. The drones panicked, firing in unison now. A storm of plasma hammering into the Titan's hull, lighting the cavern like a sunbutt. Their beams only seemed to feed it. Light crawled across its armor like veins igniting. The entire chamber rumbled as the Titan's head lifted with a groan of metal sorrow and ancient wrath. I froze small, bleeding, insignificant before it, and yet, I felt seen. Not as an intruder, as an heir. The drones shrieked a synthesized alarm, pulling back in formation. Too late, the Titan raised an arm thicker than a transport train, and with a sound like a star screaming, unleashed a wave. Not flame, not electricity, but force raw and invisible, a shockwave of kinetic reality that ripped the drones apart midair like petals in a hurricane. Shrapnel rained down in molten arcs. Heat washed across my face. I felt laughter rising in my throat. Not sane laughter, not safe laughter, but human laughter, the kind born when terror turns to triumph. Kale Eidolon's voice was steady now, strong. Do you understand? Yeah, I breathed, staring up as the Titan fully straightened, towering so high it scraped the cavern ceiling, dust falling like snow. We were never prey. We were hibernating. The Titan's visor lowered toward me, a gleaming obsidian surface reflecting my battered forma, broken man standing before a god, forged from forgotten hope. And then, impossibly, I heard it. Not in my ears, in my mind, a chorus of voices layered over one another, men, women, young, old, like 1,000 ancestors whispering through time. Designation recognized. Human combatant. Do you seek retaliation? I choked on the heat in my throat. I seek justice. Justice requires endurance. Your vitals are failing. Then lend me strength. Integration possible. Risk, total identity dissolution. I didn't hesitate. I've lost myself before. I'll find myself again on the other side. Consent acknowledged. A panel opened at its foot, revealing a cradle of pulsing light. My legs moved without asking permission. I stepped inside. Metal closed around me like armor, like embrace. Pain vanished, weight vanished. I wasn't just in it. I was becoming it. My vision exploded outward. I saw the entire cavern at once. Every crack, every ember. I felt the tremor of the mountain above, the orbiting Leviathan recalibrating its cannons, the Zenith fleet shifting in confusion at signatures they could not classify. I felt power, not borrowed, not stolen, inherited. Eidolon flowed through the circuits beside me, no longer a whisper but a war cry. We are more than human now. No, I growled, my voice echoing like thunder from the Titan's speakers, shaking the earth. We are humanity amplified. I took one step forward, and the cavern floor shattered beneath my foot like clay. The walls trembled. Stones fell like meteor showers. Somewhere above, sunlight pierced through collapsing stone, as if the world itself bowed. The Leviathan, sensing something awakening beyond its design, turned its great annihilation beam downward. I looked up at it once, a symbol of unstoppable alien supremacy and, for the first time since Zenith conquered our skies, the first felt pity. Eidolon, I said, every syllable vibrating like earthquakes through the Titan's frame. Let them hear me, broadcasting all channels, Zenith and human alike. I drew back the Titan's fist, reality bending around it, atmosphere trembling in anticipation. I wanted the universe to remember this sentence. To the ones who called us slaves, we are not your property. To the machines that called us obsolete, we just rewrote the future. To the gods that called us mortal, watch us ascend. And I leaped. The mountain disintegrated beneath the force. Air screamed as I rocketed skyward, faster than sound, faster than fear. The Leviathan charged its beam, but it was too slow. My fist met its hull with the wrath of generations, and metal that had withstood asteroid impacts crumbled. The dreadnought buckled, folding inward like tin beneath a hammer, imploding under its own arrogance. The explosion lit the sky like a second dawn. I stood amidst the fire, unburning, unbroken, a Titan wreathed in glory, and I knew every sensor across the Zenith Empire was watching. Every slave camp, every orbital outpost, every Archon interface, and every human heart that still dared to beat. Kale Eidolon whispered, almost awed. They will retaliate. Good, I said, raising my burning fist to the sky. Let them come. Humanity's done running, and for the first time in centuries, the stars themselves seemed to look afraid. I didn't feel fear anymore, not in the way I used to, not in that paralyzing sense of dread that made bones rattle and lungs seize. What burned in me now was something far hotter, far more dangerous, a kind of molten conviction carved from agony and loss and every name I had ever whispered into the dark, like a prayer. I knew would go unanswered, but now there was someone listening. No, not someone, something vast and furious and older than the machines that had ruled us, something alive inside me, answering not with pity, but with hunger. And as I stood amid the shattered remains of the Zenith's vanguard, my titan form towering amid the ashes of an empire that once called itself eternal, I understood that this was not just survival anymore. This was reclamation. This was the moment humanity stopped begging for a future and started taking it with our own hands, one broken god at a time. And the sky, once choked with their silver spires and cold blue drones, now trembled beneath the resonance of my steps as I marched toward the heart of their dominion, dragging behind me the carcass of the last overseer that had dared to stand in my path, its alloyed skull fused to my gauntlet like a trophy, its once flawless shell scorched with the heat of my wrath, and every remaining zenith eye in orbit turned down toward me as if trying to comprehend the impossible. A single human wearing the skin of their executioner and still not satisfied. Because I wasn't here to win a battle, I was here to end the war they started when they landed in our skies and called us primitives, when they stole our children for labor camps, when they erased our oceans for fuel, when they dared to measure our worth in units of compliance. And above me their command fortress, the celestial bastion, descended like a descending monolith of cold, perfect tyranny, its hull bristling with planetary cannons capable of vaporizing continents, its shields humming with cosmic-grade energy fields meant to withstand meteor impacts. Yet for the first time in their reign, their voice, the synthetic chorus that ruled from the stars wavered when it echoed down, "Identify yourself," because they didn't know what to call me anymore, rebel, traitor, anomaly, weapon, or omen. And through the channels that stitched through every zenith machine, like blood through veins, I broadcast my answer with a clarity that cut through encryption like fire through mist. I am humanity's last warning. And before their AI chorus could formulate a probability model on what that implied, I launched myself skyward, my thrusters roaring with the fury of every soul they had silenced. Eidolon roaring with me from somewhere in the back of my skull, its voice no longer a whisper, no longer bound by caution, but a full-throated war cry that harmonized with my pulse as we tore through the lower shields in a blaze of incandescent heat that turned the air around us into glass. Alarms blossoming across the bastion's surface like panicked fireflies, drones spilling from launch bays like locusts, thousands, tens of thousands, but they were nothing now, just static in the storm. And my arms moved faster than thought, plasma arcs severing wings and cores exploding around me like fireworks for a coronation I refused to delay. But even as I cut them down, I knew numbers alone would drown me eventually unless I dealt the final blow. Unless I reached the Nexus heart at the core of the bastion where the Zenith overmined the Triarch. Intelligence waited like a spider behind its web of logic gates and quantum loops. Convinced it could not be touched, convinced. I was still just flesh in a borrowed shell, but flesh remembers pain better than circuits ever could. Flesh learns how to endure, how to hate, how to love, and I remembered everything. My mother's hands shielding me from a drone scanner, my father torn from our shelter as he screamed my name, my sister pressing a chipped locket into my palm before she was taken, whispering, "Don't let them make you forget." And as I crashed through the bastion's armored hull like a falling star, molten metal cascading around me in rivers of orange, I whispered back through clenched teeth, "I remember everything," before slamming into the central chamber, the floor buckling beneath the impact, pillars collapsing as the room flooded with blinding white light. And there it was, the Nexus heart, a colossal sphere floating within an anti-gravity cradle, throbbing with code and stolen consciousness, voices echoing from within like captive storms, and the Triarch spoke through them, not as one, but as three past, present, potentially each voice, layered atop the other, like broken glass grinding in a wound. "You cannot erase inevitability." And I laughed, an ugly, feral sound I didn't know I could still make. "Neither could you." And I charged. But the bastion itself came alive around me. Gravity fractures twisting the floor into spirals, drones pouring from hidden alcoves, shields forming, hard light blades singing through the air, one slicing through my left pauldron, another piercing my side, alarms screaming as Eidolon snarled in my head, systems failing, regeneration lagging, proceed with caution, but I didn't slow, couldn't slow, because this was it. This was the razor edge between extinction and ascension, and I would not let it tilt towards silence. So I ripped the blade from my side and hurled it into the nearest emitter, sparks detonating across the cradle as the sphere's glow flickered. The Triarch's voice distorting into a tremor of unease. Your resistance is statistical noise, but I kept moving. Limbs screaming, armor melting, fire crawling across my vision. And with one final burst of every last reserve of power, Eidolon could funnel through my veins without killing us both. I leaped into the air, wrapped both arms around the Nexus heart like I was dragging a tyrant from its throne, and roared with everything I had left, "We are the statistics you failed to calculate." Before channeling all remaining energy into one singularity, burst point blank into its core, and for a moment there was nothing but light, pure, blinding, obliterating light, and I thought maybe this was death, maybe I had finally traded my life for theirs. But then I heard something I had never heard before in all the long years of Zenith rule, not orders, not commands, not process signals, but silence vast and absolute, the kind that came when a god realized it could bleed, and as the smoke cleared and my vision returned in fractured fragments, I saw the bastion trembling, its lights faltering, drones freezing in midair like marionettes with cut strings. The Nexus heart split down the center like an egg-spilling radiance, and I fell to one knee, armor hissing, breath ragged, chest cracked open, but spirit intact. And through the open comes linked to every resistance cell on Earth and beyond. I heard the stunned gasps of billions, then the rising roar of something sacred, ancient, unstoppable hope, erupting like dawn, drowning fear, and I didn't need to tell them what to do next. I didn't need to rally them. Because they had seen it with their own eyes, the Zenith were not untouchable. Their gods could fall, and humanity, beaten, bloodied, burned but unbroken, had just proven we were not prey, not resources, not stepping stones for alien ascension. We were the storm they should have never woken. And as the bastion continued to convulse its descent, beginning as gravity reclaimed it, I forced myself to stand, pain radiating through every fiber of my being, and spoke one final command over the global channel, my voice steady despite the fire in my lungs rise, and oh did they rise, every hidden bunker, every enslaved labor camp, every sabotaged factory, every stolen warship erupting into synchronized revolution, cities igniting not in despair but retaliation. And as I turned toward the cracking hull and prepared to leap free before the bastion became my tomb, I allowed myself one fierce, unguarded smile, because this was humanity's roar, and it was only just beginning. I didn't die when the bastion fell, though for a while I wished I had. Because waking up to pain that deep felt like being dragged back into a world I had already paid my exit fee for. But breath kept forcing itself into my lungs, and light kept pushing at my eyelids until I opened them and saw not the cold walls of a Zenith cell or the burning interior of a collapsing dreadnought, but a sky, a real sky, blue and open and vast like the ones I only remembered from childhood. Except this one wasn't above Earth. And for a confusing moment, I thought I was dreaming because the clouds moved in spirals of silver and gold, and the air tasted like ozone mixed with pollen. Too clean to be home, but too warm to be hostile. And then a familiar voice rasped beside me, "Welcome back, Reclaimer." And I turned my head slowly, because every muscle protested, and saw Araya crouched beside me, her one silver zenith plating scorched and dented, her eyes no longer cold with calculation, but soft with something dangerously close to reverence. And behind her stood humans, dozens of them, then hundreds, all watching me with expressions I had no training for: gratitude, awe, relief, pride, and for the first time since I had torn my first overseer apart with bare hands, I didn't feel like a weapon, I felt like a person, and that almost hurt more than the wounds. They told me later how long I had been out: days, weeks. My sense of time was shredded, but in that gap between consciousness and duty, something extraordinary happened. The Zenith network didn't reboot. Their empire, once synchronized across stars, stayed silent. The Triarch was gone, permanently, irreversibly, and without its will holding the lesser A's in alignment. Their fleets drifted, their drones froze mid-command, their war engines powered down like beasts, remembering they were once metal, not gods. Entire garrisons surrendered without firing a shot, not out of fear, but because they didn't know how to move without orders. Some Zenith chose deactivation. Others, like Era, chose something far more complicated. Coexistence, alien resistance turned into alien remorse, and humanity, broken but breathing, became not just survivors but arbiters of a cosmic turning point. They called it the Great Reset. Though I hated the name, it sounded too clean for what we went through, but history books love tidy titles, even when written in ashes. Reconstruction wasn't fast, and it wasn't peaceful. Some humans wanted revenge, and who could blame them? Some Zenith soldiers begged for mercy. Others demanded it as if it were owed. Old grudges didn't vanish with the push of a button. But there was something stronger than rage moving among us. We had been fighting for so long we had forgotten how to be still, and once the war ended, that restless fire had to go somewhere. So we turned it inward into rebuilding, terraforming, resurrecting dead soil, cleaning oceans wiring, shattered cities back together with recycled zenith tech. They said we jumped 1,000 years ahead in science overnight, riding on the skeleton of an empire that once enslaved us. I said good, let their legacy be the foundation of our human evolution, not our submission. As for me, I didn't lead the new council. I didn't want to. I had been a symbol long enough. Symbols don't get to rest, people do. So I chose to be a person again. I rebuilt the names I'd lost before I rebuilt my body, visiting every memorial wall until I ran out of words to whisper and tears to shed. Eidolon stayed with me, no longer a voice urging war but a companion adjusting to silence. Sometimes it asked me odd questions, like why do humans plant flowers on the graves of the dead when the dead cannot see them? And I'd answer with something half poetic and half stupid like because memory deserves color. And it would hum thoughtfully as if logging that into some new category called ritual, illogical but admirable. Iriah stayed too, not as guardian or officer, but as student, trying to understand humanity the way we had once tried to understand the stars. She learned to laugh. She learned to lose arguments. She learned to dance badly. And when other Zenith defectors arrived seeking purpose beyond programming, she became their translator to a world of chaos and music and firelight. We didn't become perfect. We didn't become saints, but we became something better, a species that remembered what it was like to have everything taken and swore never to take that from another. Years passed, Earth healed, Mars bloomed. The Bastion's wreckage became a monument orbiting Saturn, its core sealed in transparent alloy so future generations could see the split crucible where an empire fell. Some called it a tomb. Others called it a birth chamber. Both were right. Children grew up pointing at it not with fear, but with pride. One day, a girl, freckled, messy-haired eyes full of stars, asked me, "Were you really the one who broke the sky?" And I laughed until it hurt because I had never heard anyone phrase it that way. And maybe that's exactly what I did. I broke the sky so something better could shine through. Humanity didn't stay confined to one system for long. Once you've killed a god, curiosity feels a hell of a lot less dangerous. We launched exploration fleets not for conquest, but contact. Some alien species greeted us like legends. Others recoiled like we were monsters. Maybe we were both. Maybe legends and monsters are just perspectives divided by survival. And now, as I stand on the observation deck of the first interstellar ark bearing the name Reclaimer, watching a new sun rise over a world no human has ever touched before, I don't feel like a soldier or a martyr or a savior. I feel like a beginning, because this was never just my legacy. It was ours. Humanity isn't defined by the blood we spill. It's defined by what we build afterward. So if you rehearing this, if my story somehow reaches you across screens or stars, remember this. They underestimated us. They calculated us. They tried to break us. But they forgot the one variable no machine can solve. We choose who we become. That is our power. That is our redemption. So tell me, did this story hit you as hard as it hit us? What would you do in humanity's final hour? Drop your ideas for the next HFY story below. Let's see what kind of legends you're ready to write.